And you're watching Business Incorporated live on Channels Television. Coming up on the program, the International Monetary Fund predicts South Africa will briefly lead Africa's economy in 2024. And Egypt becomes first MENA country to issue Panda bond in China's market for 3.5 billion yuan. Plus, Kenya Airways has been crowned winner for Africa's leading airline for its economy class service. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Ladi Williams. Let's kick off with the markets starting on the African continent with major equity markets we track right here in Africa. We see the NGX there snapping the loss we had yesterday to close, and now trading in positive territory, 0.29% at intraday. And we see South Africa's index pulling back there, 0.78%. But EGX 30, that's in North Africa, doing really well, continuing from yesterday's bullish move, up 4.95% today. The EGX 30 has been on fire now, and analysts say the surge in the EGX 30 can be ascribed to the active trading on the exchange there, with major equities making big moves like Abukir and Mopco fertilizer companies taking that index up. But Kenya closed 0.02%. That was yesterday. Let's take it over to the Middle East now. We see it mostly negative sentiment right there in the UAE. We see the Abu Dhabi index there, 0.79%. On the flip side, the Dubai index is down 0.15%. Flip over to Saudi Arabia and Qatar. We see it's Saudi Arabia index there in positive territory at intraday, 1.21% up, while Qatari index down 0.12%. Let's head on to London now. We have Juliana standing by right there. Great to have you, Juliana. So we see the CMA has upheld the CAA's decision to cut airline fees at London Heathrow Airport by 20%. That's good news for passengers.
Yeah, good afternoon, Laddie. This is some good news for passengers who rarely get good news. It's been pretty difficult to get a cheap flight from the UK to anywhere, mostly to Europe because of Brexit, but then also I think lots of travel expenses were increased because of the cost of living crisis and the fact that airlines wanted to claw back some of their lost earnings. Now, this row between Heathrow Airport and the Civil Aviation Authority and airlines, actually, including Virgin Airline, kicked off in March, and this was because Heathrow Airport put out plans saying that they were going to increase the amount they charge for passengers, basically having the benefit of using a clean and sparkling airport like Heathrow. Now, the charge, I believe, was £25.50 per passenger. It's something that you wouldn't really see unless you look at the small print of what you're being charged. And I think Heathrow bosses wanted to increase that by 20% next year to about £31.50 per passenger. Now, the Civil Aviation Authority got involved. They said that they wouldn't give them an opportunity to do that. So it went to a much higher court. So the UK competition watchdog, the CMA, they have this morning sided with the Civil Aviation Authority and with airlines such as Virgin Atlantic, and basically have asked Heathrow not to do this. Heathrow have responded. They said that it's a completely unfair decision and that, in fact, it could halt further investment to one of the world's busiest airports. It was once Europe's busiest airports, but it's since been taken over by the likes of others on mainland Europe. But they said they aren't going to appeal and they are going to let it go. But it just goes to show it's a really difficult times at the moment, and I think the fact that Virgin Atlantic and other airlines were back in the Civil Aviation Authority, they know that their tickets are much higher than they were a couple of years ago, and they want the aviation sector to improve. And one of the ways of doing that is, trying to please the pockets of consumers rather than pleasing the pockets of the investors, which is what Heathrow and IAG have been accused of.
Right, I guess consumers and customers need as much good news at this time. We got another report from PwC UK. It says climate tech investment fell about 40% in the past year. What's driving that?
Yeah, this is a very interesting story at the moment, particularly as, even though it's very, very cold in London at the moment, despite my no sleeves. But we have had a record high summer. It's one of the warmest years that we've ever had on record. We're going into another COP in just a couple of weeks' time in November. So you would think that investors are keen to invest in climate tech, because without that tech, it's very difficult for meteorologists to test the weather and forecast exactly where we are going to be seeing ourselves within the next couple of years. So investment had been strong, but according to PricewaterhouseCoopers, as you've just said, year on year, climate tech investment has fallen by about 40% to about $65 billion US. Now, there are various reasons for this. We know that the global tech investment scene at the moment remains uneven and very slow. High interest rates, high inflation, geopolitical turmoil, and lowered valuations. So I think it's not just climate tech. This is something that we're seeing in investment across the world. And also as well, Laddie, this PwC survey, it's not just looking at the UK, it's looking at the scene overall. So it is quite alarming. But the fact that $65 billion has gone to startup firms over the past year is a good sign. And then perhaps, when we do go into COP, there will be more pledges. But I think we need to get away from the pledges and we need to move more into action.
Yeah, definitely action needed at this time. But talking about investors, how are the markets looking in the UK today?
Yeah, it's in pretty tip-top shape at intraday, the UK Blue Chip Index. We discussed this morning on your show Business Morning about the ONS data. The Office for National Statistics released some data looking at the UK labour market. For the first time in a very long time, it was incomplete. So we don't actually have the specific figure of UK unemployment, which is still universally and historically low at 4.3%. But what the data did reveal is that there is wage growth, not too much. It's at 7.8%, but given that inflation is at 6.7%, it is showing that wages are outstripping inflation. As long as it's not pressed too much, this is a good thing, because of course, if you've got more money in your back pocket, you are going to make those extra spendings. And that's what the UK economy needs if it is going to avoid a recession, which we are teetering on. So that labour market data really did cheer investors, which is why at intraday, the all share is up 0.29%, the FTSE 100 up to 0.32%, and the FTSE 250, the domestic market, that's up at intraday, Laddie, by 0.15%. In the currencies market, the British pound is actually trailing against the US dollar by 0.17%, also trailing against the euro by nearly 0.5%, and the British pound is down against the Japanese yen by 0.28% at intraday, Laddie.
Yeah, I feel like if workers in Nigeria get more wages, I believe workers here are going to save more. Because right now, wage
that's another
earners,
thing. People do save when they get money.
Yeah, so we don't have to spend it all. Thank you so much, Juliana. Always great having you.
We're saving for a rainy day and for Christmas.
And for Christmas,
Thanks, Laddie.
Thank you. All right, now let's take it to Europe now. See, at the height of the coronavirus pandemic, German tech firm Biotech firm, Biotech developed and marketed the most used vaccine and made billions. Now, management has updated investors on the latest numbers. We're getting all the earnings out there now. Lars Holt is with Deutsche Welle and joins me from Berlin. Great to have you, Lars. So how is Biotech doing these days?
Hello, Lottie. Thanks for having me. Yes, initial numbers came from Pfizer last week. The US pharmaceutical giant is BioNTech's partner and was mostly in charge of marketing and distributing BioNTech's COVID vaccine. Pfizer last week reduced its full-year forecast for sales of the vaccine by about $2 billion. Of course, that is due to a plunge in the use of pandemic-related products. Here's some background on that. Looking at the US, just around 17% of the population will get updated COVID vaccines during the current vaccination campaign. That is in line with last year, but it's far below rates we've seen when vaccines first emerged in the spring of 2021. Pfizer's CEO calls it COVID fatigue. And indeed, it seems only high-risk patients are currently bothering with vaccination. The latest number now comes from Biotech, and it's over 900 million euros in write-offs, and that would be for vaccines that have already been produced and cannot be sold anymore.
So what does the future hold for Biotech?
Well, management is all optimistic about their future, and that's not because they're hoping for another pandemic, of course. It's much more due to the fact that their successful COVID vaccine was just one drug in their pipeline, and that others are being developed that are also built around mRNA technology. BioNTech is using this messenger RNA in immunization therapies for other illnesses too, including autoimmune diseases and cancer. As a matter of fact, BioNTech's founder, Ugo Sahin, says that the company is working on several cancer treatments and that oncology is likely going to be the field with the highest future demand for the firm's expertise and products. Now, let me give you some numbers to illustrate BioNTech's activities. The company currently has 20 products in 24 studies in oncology alone, and another 6 products in 10 studies in autoimmune diseases. And this year's investment in research and development, 2.5 billion euros.
All right, what are investors looking at in today's market?
Well, 2 trips are on everyone's watch list today. US President Biden will visit Israel in a show of solidarity and an attempt to stop the situation there from deteriorating further as Israel moves to launch a ground offensive. The market is seeing that as a sign that, at least for now, during Biden's visit, the situation in the Middle East will not escalate further. And then we have Russian President Vladimir Putin in Beijing, where he's meeting with Chinese President Xi. The trip is aimed at showcasing the no-limits partnership between China and Russia. And while that is largely a political meeting, it also touches on economic matters. Beijing is celebrating the 10th anniversary of its Belt and Road Initiative. That's the reason for the summit that Putin is visiting. And it seems a stronger partnership with Russia is something China is looking for with regards to that multi-trillion-dollar infrastructure initiative.
Right, all eyes still on geopolitical tension right now. Thank you so much. That was Lars Holter right there in Berlin, giving us the details from Europe. Let's take it on to Asia now. We'll see Australian China stocks close higher today for the first time in 3 days, while the New Zealand dollar weakened following an inflation reading, the first since the elections over the weekend. Minutes from the Reserve Bank of Australia detailed the central bank's rationale for holding its benchmark lending rates at 4.1% during its October monetary policy meeting. So we see behind me there green on the screen. In Asia, Nikkei is up 1.20%, while the Kospi is up 0.98%. HSI index also not left out, 0.75%. And flip over to other markets we track there. Shanghai, 0.32% up, and the ASX 200 reacting positively to that, 0.42% up. Sticking on to U.S. now. U.S. stock futures slid today as third quarter earnings season gained momentum. Futures tied to the Dow Jones Industrial Average lost about 69 points, about 0.2%. S&P 500 futures and the NASDAQ 100 futures were also down there. So red on the screen in the U.S. S&P futures there 0.27% down, and the tech-heavy NASDAQ 0.33% down. Johnson & Johnson rose more than 1% before the bell after reporting better than expected adjusted earnings and revenue for the third quarter, boosted by strong medical technology and pharmaceutical sales. Bank of America's results exceeded analyst expectations, pushing the stock up 1% in pre-market trading. Let's get a check on oil markets. Now, oil prices steadied today after sliding more than $1 on Monday amid hopes the U.S. would ease sanctions on producer Venezuela as Washington stepped up efforts to prevent an escalation of the war between Israel and Hamas. Brent crude futures were up 40 cents at $90.05 a barrel, while U.S. WTI crude was up 28 cents at $86.94 a barrel. U.S. President Joe Biden will make a high-stakes visit to Israel That's tomorrow as the country prepares to escalate an offensive against Hamas militants that set off a humanitarian crisis in Gaza and raise fears of a broader conflict with Iran. I will take a break now. When we come back, commodities market update is next. Do stay with us. All right, let's look at the fruits market now. As food inflation hits over 30% in Nigeria, that's for the September data we got yesterday. We'll see a dozen big-size pawpaws or papaya, which cost about 3,000 naira at the start of the year. It's now up about 50% to 4,500 naira. Let's hear why now from Daniela Mobodede, analyst at Financial Derivatives Company. Great to have you on the show, Daniela.
Good afternoon, Ladi. Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. So how does this, the price movement of the pawpaw fruit compare to other tropical fruits on the market, and what factors influence its pricing?
So like many fruits, pawpaw is highly nutritious and is rich in vitamins and minerals. So it's highly demanded all year round in Nigeria. So compared to other tropical fruits, pawpaw is actually very easy to cultivate. If you ask around, there are lots of Nigerians with pawpaw trees in their compounds, like at the back of their houses. So the supply of pawpaw is relatively high in the country. So in terms of like the pricing, you can find out that most other fruits, the rate at which their price increase is higher than that of pawpaw. And this is because pawpaw is very perishable. If you buy pawpaw today, in the next few days, it could go bad. So pawpaw farmers can't really afford to like increase their prices a lot because they have to sell it off before they get spoiled. And then generally, pawpaw prices are also affected by, demand and supply dynamics, seasonal variations, the level of competition, transportation and distribution costs, and all of that.
Yeah, I guess I'll go and grow my own pawpaw in my backyard very soon. Well, see, Nigeria is currently the fourth largest producer of pawpaw in the world and the largest in Africa, accounting for over 40% of the total pawpaw production on the continent. What are the key factors contributing to its success in pawpaw cultivation, and are there any strategies in place to maintain or potentially increase this market share?
So, Nigeria's success in the cultivation of pawpaw and its status as one of the largest producers of pawpaw globally is actually attributed to numerous factors, one of which, and the most important, is the Nigerian climate and weather condition. Nigeria has a tropical climate, which is very ideal for cultivating pawpaw, because to grow pawpaw, you need to have abundant sunlight, and a warm temperature, which is we see in Nigeria, most especially in south, southeast, and southwest states. There's also availability of arable land, and then abundance of labor in terms of like farmers. So yeah, that's why the beauty of pawpaw farming is that wherever you have fertile loamy soil, you can literally like throw pawpaw seeds, and within 1 year you have a full-blown pawpaw crop that will produce, and might even, if taken care of properly, can produce fruits for up to 5 years. And as a matter of fact, a lot of farmers go into pawpaw production, not even necessarily because of producing itself. They do intercropping because pawpaw trees also serve as a shade for some of their other crops that they grow. So right now there's no much incentives or strategies in place to boost pawpaw farming because we don't really have a shortage. Like I said, Nigeria is already up there when it comes to pawpaw production in the country. So regardless, we're still faced with the regular challenges that growing other agricultural products face, such as pests and diseases, inadequate infrastructure or access to finance. But then with improved and modern farming technologies, government support, and development of infrastructure, pawpaw production in Nigeria actually has the potential to, if properly channeled, has the potential to increase and generate a lot of revenue and contribute to the overall economic growth.
Right, I'm curious. Now. What kind of demand do we have in the global market for pawpaw?
Yes, so there's also value-added pawpaw products. Currently, we're seeing that there's use of pawpaw to make, jams. There's use people use pawpaw to make juices. Even the pawpaw seed, there's pawpaw seed oil, and now there's growing health consciousness. So people are trying to make use of products that natural and organic products. So some skincare brands even use like pawpaw extracts to make like soaps and other skincare products. So, and by the time they make that, there's like an export market for that, both locally and internationally.
So that means investors, looking at that market can be sure of good profit, going forward and revenue.
Yes.
All right, thank you so much. That was Daniela Omobodede, analyst, financial derivatives company. Thank you so much. All right, let's look at other stories now. International Monetary Fund says South Africa is poised to momentarily top Africa's economy in 2024 with a GDP of $401 billion. This forecast places South Africa ahead of Nigeria at $395 billion and Egypt at $358 billion. However, by 2026, Nigeria and Egypt are projected to reclaim their positions, pushing South Africa back to third place. South Africa's rand operates on a free-floating exchange rate, but has depreciated by 10% against the dollar this year due to concerns over National Treasury missing its budget deficit targets and record power cuts. And Egypt has become the first nation in the Middle East and Africa to issue sustainable international Panda bonds on the Chinese financial market, allocated to finance projects worth about 3.5 billion Chinese yuan, the equivalent of about $500 million. The Egyptian government confirmed that this issuance succeeded in attracting many Chinese investors and was distinguished by the implementation of sustainable financing policies in Asia and Africa. And Kenya Airways has been crowned winner for Africa's leading airline for its economy class service. Kenya Airways was feted at the Africa and Indian Ocean World Travel Awards Gala Ceremony 2023 held 15th October at the Atlantis, the Royal Hotel in Dubai. This is the fifth year Kenya Airways has received an award in Africa's leading airline economy class category and the second consecutive year. And inflation rate in Nigeria hit an 18-year high in September, driven mostly by subsidy removal and FX unification, as Nigerians grapple with rising energy costs. According to energy expert Mr. Jide Pratt, the NNPCL should find ways to make energy more affordable for Nigerians and also make its processes transparent. He was a guest on Business Morning earlier today with me.
From the accountability point of view, a lot of people talk about the swaps, and I believe that there was too much secrecy about the swaps. I don't believe there was enough accountability on the part of the NMC in terms of swaps. So what does this do now? What we're saying is that you're going to use the cash you have. And I mean, when we say cash, it's not literally cash. You open a letter of credit, a deferred letter of credit, 45 days, 90 days, whatever it is. But what it means is that the cash available that you have is what you use for the trades. And it's more, for want of a better word, transparent. So, I mean, that's a positive. How consistent that would be, because we forget the fact that we have a major problem in terms of FX. No international trader is going to trade in Naira, in my opinion. So it means that you need more foreign exchange to be able to keep those deals going on a cash basis.
And that's it on Business Incorporated. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget, you can watch this again on our YouTube channel. Flip over to YouTube, search for Channels Television. You can watch all our production. You can also visit www.channelcv.com. From me and the team right here in Lagos, it's bye for now.